Hi there. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Crystal Whittevrongel, collaborating with Common Sense Edmonton, here today to talk with Steve Van Diest, who is running for Edmonton City Council for the Sspomitapi ward. Steve, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us here today.
Oh, definitely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. I'd love to hear more about you. What foundation are you bringing into City Council?
Okay, so this is kind of a unique question. I have a unique path that kind of brought me here. So I started off in film and television post productions. That's kind of where my education comes. So like an art student. I studied that, and then I came over and studied television broadcasting at the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. From there, I worked with Global Television, working in their creative department, and then also worked with a corporation called Dome Productions, who does all of the Oiler games. So it's more like on location setups and teardowns. So I used to work with a lot of the Oilers. And then from there, I actually opened up my own business. I started off doing creative content, working with more music videos and weddings and things like that. And from there, I shifted in opening up a company called Viva Voce Marketing Group and became a marketer. So I was doing a lot of marketing and working with a lot of big companies, and then going out there meeting heads of these companies, doing the interviews, similar to what you're kind of doing here, except I would be on the other side, asking the questions and letting them talk. And then so I kind of eventually got pulled into this whole politicking stuff, simply because I just wanted, I was tired of the direction that things were going, and I really wanted to make a change. And I felt that I'm always like one of those guys who's always about community and local and all this stuff like that. So I always figured if I was going to get involved in politics, it would have to be at a local level. And so that's kind of where I am. So now I'm running in Ward 12, Sspomitapi, which is my hometown, my home area anyways. I grew up in Wine Loss, and I studied at Wine Loss Elementary School, went to Kate Chegwin Junior High, and then also went to Blessed Kateri, which is now called Saint Kateri. So she switched over from Blessed to Saint, and then went to Holy Trinity. So I'm now back in my ward and working with the people there, and I know that area, so that's kind of where I decided to run.
Oh, wonderful. And so, what are you hearing are some of the priorities of your ward when you're talking to people in the community and at their doors?
So when I talk to the doors, there's a couple things. Communication is a big issue. Like sometimes some people feel that they're not getting proper communication, so that it almost feels like it's a top-down dictatorship kind of thing. It sounds bad, but like where people are being told what they need as opposed to what they want. So that's kind of the things that really upsets people. People don't, from all the people that I've met, people don't like being told what they need. They don't like being told what to do. Like people like being asked. I'm the same way. I like being asked things, and then I'll bend over backwards to help serve you. And then there's just like a natural resistance when you're just forced to do something, So that's one of the ones. Communication was a big one. Speeding. People are upset about speeding. They talked a lot about that, especially around the school zones. But they also seem to be really upset about the spending on terms of how they're dealing with the speeding. Right now, the council's got us putting these concrete blocks in, which are like they're called curb extenders or bulbs. People don't. They kind of looking at them and kind of thinking they're funny looking. They look kind of weird. What is this? Like they almost look like temporary. It's like a temporary Band-Aid kind of thing. So they don't know how it's going to work with the snow removal, those types of things, with those types of problems. Safety is another big issue that in my ward, people are concerned about safety. And then I have a unique perspective because in part of my team, I kind of get the chance to go to all the other different wards as well. So I've been seeing some of the problems that are not just in my ward, but are now becoming problems citywide. So one of the other big problems that we're having is this infill problem in some of the mature neighborhoods, where you have developers that are getting access to the federal program, which is good for them. But what happens is we gave them like ability to kind of go and you can go and tear down whatever house you want and build whatever you want. And they're basically going around and tearing down all these single family homes that would be nice starter homes for young families. They're tearing them down and they're replacing them with multiplex units, 4 on top, 4 on bottom, no parking requirements. And that was basically brought in by this current council. And that was kind of an oversight because they basically opened the door to predatory development, whereas just buy and repeat, rinse and repeat. And they're some of these neighborhoods are just getting ravished, and you'll see like garbage bins, because each unit has to have a garbage bin and a recycle bin or a compost bin. So you have like 16 bins in some of these areas where you're just like, this doesn't look good at all, you know? So we've been talking about that, and we think that something like that, we need to go back to the original bylaw and relook at this one and see if we can get some districting involved in that bylaw, which was kind of really left out, instead of just doing blanket across the city.
And so let's chat a bit about the infill development, since it is such a hot topic. What do you think the city needs to do differently to engage residents better about things like this, because it is such a huge impact on them?
Yeah, well, the big thing is allowing the residents to basically be involved at an earlier process. I think right now a lot of these residents are getting the information, but after after everything has been kind of done, and they're saying, oh yeah, this is what's going to happen in your neighborhood. If you have any complaints, let us know. And then they just wait to see how many complaints they get, but it's already been kind of already gone through. So it's these people then all of a sudden feel that their voices are not being heard, because the people that are complaining, or the ones that are paying attention and going and voicing their concerns, they are not getting heard, and they're just getting brushed off. With that, I'd like to tell a story, if I could, about how this, like, so I'm part of an organization called PACE, Principled Accountable Coalition for Edmonton. And the reason why it started was mainly because of that exact reason that you said there, about how the voices are not being heard. So our president, Sheila, she was at a city council, kind of getting involved more in the city council level. And a constituent was talking about how this infill went up next to his house. And they put like a 3-story infill that basically took out the sun to his garden. So he lost all of the sun in his garden, and it killed his garden completely. And so he was explaining his story to the council, and the council said, well, you really don't have any rights to sunlight. So when she heard that, that was kind of the catalyst that started everything, because from there she went out, she knocked on everyone's door, she started holding town halls. She really was like a one-man show, trying to get as many people to support the organization as possible. And she ended up getting the 1,200 signatures required in order to become a party. And that's kind of how PACE was started. And it all started with this infill problem. So the infill is a big one for us as a group. We definitely want to repeal that bylaw and relook at it and make it something that's for everybody, is not just for, just not for the developers. So it kind of benefits the community as well, because you do have a lot of people that invest a lot of money in these communities. And when you start changing the character of the community, all of a sudden their investment kind of starts to dwindle away.
And so what would you be in favor of in terms of development, like some of the transit corridor areas, or,
Yeah,
because I understand the mature neighborhoods, the desire to protect.
Yeah, we need to basically push the direction in the areas that we really want development, in terms of where the developers want to be, and give them more incentive to build in the areas that are really kind of derelict. Like we have areas in the city that really do need a lot of infill, where we need to really go in there and place, but they're in areas that are not they're not as desirable in terms of like having a rental property there, but those areas need to be developed. So we need to make those areas more desirable for these developers to go in, as opposed to some of the more desirable areas, tearing them down completely and changing the whole character of the setup there. So that's one area I was thinking we kind of need to look at, because infill is not bad. The only problem is that when you're doing a mid-block unit, those people are not technically going to be riding their bicycles or taking the LRT, because they're in mid-block. So most of the times they have vehicles. So you have a mid-block unit with now 8 vehicles on the street. That's kind of an oversight that a lot of that I think that this council had. We really need to focus on doing high density development along the subway line and help increase the ridership, because we spent a lot of money on this LRT system, a lot of money on this LRT
Mm-hmm.
system, hoping that, if you build it, they will come kind of ideology. But right now it's not safe. Nobody wants to be on it. The ridership is at 29%. That means of the financial cost. So that means 71% of that is coming out of the taxpayers just to keep it operational and the maintenance and operation. So we really need to look at building that ridership along the subway line, and really that way those people don't need to to have a vehicle, because they have modes of transportation designed for them.
Mm-hmm. And so on that note, with transit safety, it's definitely a huge issue, and people don't feel safe taking transit. So what would you propose if you were in city council on how to bolster that and bring safety back to the LRT?
So we have on our team, we have a member of our team that actually worked with the LRT, and so he knows the ins and outs of that, and he really explained it to us very, very well, that what the problem is there. The problem that's going on in the LRT is you have like 8 levels of administration, and nobody has any teeth. Everyone is basically, observe and report, observe and report. So what ends up happening is you empower these people to come in to just kind of loiter around, open drug use, and people just don't feel safe around that type of environment. A lot of times what ends up, like I've lived in big cities as before, like I've lived in Toronto. What usually pushes that kind of those types of people out is crowds. The more people that you have, the more safe sometimes people feel, because there's more people around. You just feel safe in numbers. When it's just you on the subway line, and you might be sitting next to someone that it doesn't look like someone that you would kind of want to interact with, you have a sense of naturally being scared and worried, because now all of a sudden it's just you and that other person, and that environment kind of needs to change. That person might be harmless, completely harmless, but it's just a naturality that people just they feel more comfortable in numbers. What we need to do realistically is to kind of push off all of the unwanted behaviors or things like that from the subway line, with just more, we think, police presence. We don't need to have more policing in terms of like, arresting people and things like that. We just feel that if you just have some police presence kicking around, it's a natural deterrent, because those people, when something does go wrong, there's no calling, there's no trying to get someone to show up. It's literally, they deal with the situation right there and then, as opposed to having to show up and then fill out the reports, and it's all just paperwork at that time. So that's kind of where we're looking at it, is maybe shrinking down some of the management side of skills in terms of that, and pushing that over more to the police side, and letting them deal with that in terms of how they feel that we can get it more safe.
And so in terms of funding, like shrinking kind of the admin and moving
It's
that
in,
over.
it's just redistributing it in terms of like what would actually work. Because those people, for instance, if you have, peace officers that don't have the ability to do an arrest or do any of those other things, you could easily give those people more power, or you deputize them, or, I don't know the logistics of that side yet, but there's ways to basically give more power to that administration, rather than just observe and report, which is what we got right now, which doesn't do anything. It just means that the guy just keeps telling the guy off, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone, until eventually, an hour, you wasted 5 different people's time. And that costs money, because you're paying for 5 different people to do the exact same thing, when you just need one person to go there and do the job.
And so that kind of makes me think about the property taxes, or the spending priorities of the city. And so if we're just kind of shifting resources, there's not necessarily any new spending there. But what are your thoughts on how the city currently spends, and what should be done in the next 4 years?
Well, we have a big problem in this current council has a big spending problem. Our capital expenditure deficit is coming close to $5 billion. And so the interest payments on that every year is $400 million a year. That's the second largest bill, next to the policing force. So the police force has got about 14% of your tax bill. And then this interest payment, just the interest payment, is 11% of your tax bill. So that needs to change. What's happening is a lot of projects are being implemented, and they're being implemented not at the request of the communities that asked them for them. They're being implemented by an ideology coming from the top. So the top is this trying to really force their ideas, their ideology upon the communities, and they're doing it as a whole. And that comes back to that whole part, the thing where the people are not enjoying being told what to do or how to live their lives. It seems kind of sad because, like, you look at, for instance, bike lanes right now, everyone's complaining about bike lanes, and you're just like, why are the bike lanes getting why are the bike lanes getting such a hard hit? Because people like riding their bikes. We are a winter city, but people enjoy riding their bikes. I grew up riding a bike. We used to ride our bike through the river valley, and in the river valley, you could ride that river valley all the way from the Minchow Ravine all the way up into downtown. It literally has a path that goes all the way. But what's happening is because of this ideology and this war on cars, what they're doing is they're literally tearing up roadways, they're tearing up infrastructure, motor vehicle infrastructure, and they're shrinking them. And what their idea, what it seems like is their idea is to make it more undesirable to drive, that you're more willing to take the LRT and more willing to ride your bike as opposed to use a motor vehicle. And people are now starting to feel that crunch. I went over into the Onolnik ward, and the design there, they tore up the road. They like, it was 2 lanes on both sides. They shrunk it down into 1 lane on each side. They put a walking path and then a bike path on one side and a walking path and a bike path on the other side. So only the city government would basically go and build 2 bike lanes, 1 on each side of the road, plus a walking path. So where realistically the better idea would have been making a multi-use path, because nobody's even used it. Like, you'll watch 1 or 2 bike riders. It's not like you have tons of traffic going through there. You could easily have made that a multi-use path with a line down the middle of that multi-use path, so people know to stay on the right or left side. They can go around each other. It would be really safe to kind of do similar to what we do in the river valleys. So that's kind of a prime example of spending money that we don't, for things that we want but don't necessarily need. So that's we need to go back to doing the services that we need, because that's what's end up happening is now people are not getting the services that they want. Their snow removal is being cut back. Their grass is not being cut. A lot of people were complaining that dandelions were growing, and that there was an issue where you weren't allowed to cut the dandelions, and the dandelion seeds now went into everyone's yard, and now you have everyone buying Roundup at the Home Depot to clean off all of these dandelions, because it's spread from the fields that they didn't refuse to cut. So, like, it's like little things like that. We got to go back to the basics, doing the things. If we don't do the snow removal on time, that water starts to melt, or freeze melt, and then that all of a sudden it cracks up the holes. Now we got a bigger problem, because now we got more potholes that we got to deal with. And then so these are the issues that we need to stay on top of on a regular basis.
Absolutely. And it brings the focus of what is municipal government really supposed to be doing, and what should City Hall be doing. And it is those core services, and bringing it back to the basics of doing stuff like that. But, getting spending in check is one part. But what do you feel about the current level of property taxes?
They're really high. People are really, really upset about the property taxes. You can't keep going up 6%, 6%, 6%. And then on top of that, you're going up 6% every time. And then you're losing your tax base as well, because people are leaving. You have businesses that are moving out of the city. So when you're getting a nice tax base from a business, and then all of a sudden you start increasing the taxes on that business goes, why am I here? It's too small. I can easily go to Nisku. I can go to some of these smaller towns and not pay as much taxes and get a better place that I can actually run my operation. So we want to make it a little bit more business friendly, so we can bring those businesses back in. They can hire more people in the city. We can start increasing the revenue. That's really where we should focus on, less on increasing the percentage and more increasing people's revenue. So if people are making more money, they're less worried about the amount of they're paying in taxes, or that's naturally going to drive your income, your percentage up. The percentage will stay the same, but the amount of money we get is more, because people are making more. But when people start making less, you have no other option but to increase more, the more that you take from them. And you're just like, people are making less and you're taking more, because you want to try to set up these services that nobody asked for. So we kind of have to really look at that balance in terms of how that goes. people were upset that the council tried to run a 10 to 12% increase, and people had pushback on that. And so instead of, which is the tricky thing that they did, so instead of giving the 10 to 12% increase in their taxes, they basically said, okay, we'll give you 6%. But then when they increased the value of their home, they increased the value of the property to get the same amount of money that they needed, which is kind of just some shifty accounting that's going on there. So that's kind of what, these are the complaints that you're hearing at the doors when you kind of go out there and you're talking to people and you're seeing what's going on. And I'm learning this process. I'm learning this. I see the problems at the door, and then you kind of go and I'm trying to learn the process in terms of the council and what the council has to do. And I really want to kind of get back to bringing everything back to the basics and worrying less about the, some of the other politics that kind of happens when you kind of get involved at this level.
And so if, it takes time to bring businesses back or to, create the conditions for prosperity in that sense. In the near future, would you be in favor of freezing property tax hikes or reducing them? What are your thoughts there?
Definitely. We've talked about this. We definitely want to do a freeze and reevaluate the actual budget. Almost start at zero-based budgeting, where we actually go through and have, we don't necessarily need to go and cut programs, but we need people to justify where they're spending their money, because it has to be a collective, like everyone collectively has to work together. Like we cannot keep everyone's worried because they're going to cut my budget. They're going to cut my budget. Unless and I've seen it. I've been involved in so many things where it's common practice for when they don't spend the budget, they have leftover money. It's a common practice for people to go and, try to spend as much of that budget as you can, because if we don't spend it, we're not going to get it back.
Yeah.
Which is not an ideal way of actually doing business. It's kind of lazy in terms of like thinking, okay, this is how much we gave this company last year, this is how much we're going to give them this year. We should go back to zero-based budgeting and saying, okay, explain to us what you need and why you need it, and give us a detailed breakdown of your budget and where it's going to go, so then we can kind of see those detailed itemized lists and know whether they're spending, just an example, they're spending $1,000 on Scotch tape. I'm like, do we really need $1,000 in Scotch tape? Like, can we save some of that money, and put it towards something else? So, and then bring down some of these capital expenditures down, so that way we're not losing $400 million just on servicing fees. Like that's a lot of money that could be going towards something else.
Yeah, the interest payments are insane when you really understand that you're spending for literally nothing.
and that's where I see the problem. I think that there's definitely people who have special interest in the city spending a lot of money. That definitely, they benefit from the city being very freely just pumping money out, because that's it. You become a slave to the lender. You end up becoming, who better to lend money to than the city when they're going to always pay their bills, right? But if we keep going down this pathway, people don't understand that we as a city are part of a province, and we as a city are meant to manage the fiscal purse. And what happens is that we're only allowed to put toward 21% of our revenue towards debt repayment. And 11% of that already is just interest. So if that continues to climb up and we get to 18% to the 21, we are getting to a position where we can't pay down the principal. And then all of a sudden, then the province is going to come in and take the city away from us. We're not even going to be able to manage the city anymore. And if anyone's mad at the province, how mad are they going to be once the city is no longer in charge? So these are the things that we need to consider moving forward. And from what I understand, if we don't make a change now, and we look to making this change, and get ourselves out of this in the next 6 to 10 years, where we can turn the ship around, because it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen over time. But if we don't make that change now, we're going to be having that problem in the next 4 years down the road. So this is a critical point right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And stopping it before it gets worse is very important.
Exactly.
And so you bring up an interesting point about people being mad at the province, but it gets me more thinking about the relationship between the city and the province. And, if you're elected to city council, what will you do to ensure that there is a smooth relationship with the province?
Well, I've seen the landscape right now that it's very polarized. You have people, you're either if you're either on one side or the other side, and people are fighting, and there's a lot of fighting going on. And our current council is definitely polarized from dealing with the province. They can't be going out there and mudslinging and throwing names out and calling people
Mm-hmm.
evil and then going around and asking them for money in return. It just doesn't work that way. Like the what ends up happening is when you treat people on that type of a light, they're not going to bend over backwards to help you. So
Mm-hmm.
what's happening right now, and this is just from my understanding, from the way it's explained to me, is what's happening right now is people are saying that the province isn't paying their property taxes. They're not paying their property taxes. What the province is doing is, instead of paying the property taxes, which technically it's the province, it's like paying itself because we're part of the province. But instead of giving the property taxes, what they do is they give grants in lieu of taxes. So they're giving grants in lieu of taxes. And what that does is it basically allows the province to really allocate where they want money to go. From what
Mm-hmm.
I understand, it allows them to allocate. But what they do is they give us almost twice as much in lieu in grants and in lieu of taxes than if we just collected the taxes and we were freely able to do whatever we want with it. We get twice as much more funding. But what the province did is, because of this infighting, because this poor relationship that they have with the Edmonton City Council,
Mm-hmm.
they put a freeze on the growth of those grants. So they put a freeze on it because normally the grants grow as your population grows. But they
Mm-hmm.
said, no, we're going to put a freeze on the amount of money we're giving you, and we're going to look at it conveniently after this next election. so there, I think what's happening is the province really wants to see what's going to happen, whether Edmonton's going to continue down the path that they currently went down, whether the Edmontonians
Mm-hmm.
are choosing to say, no, we're gonna fight this battle and continue to drive the city into the ground financially, or whether we're going to actually start to be able to create a positive synergetic relationship with the province. And that's even doesn't matter who's running the province. We need to be able to work with other voices and other perspectives for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. And this level of dysfunction between relationships at differing levels of government it always blows my mind, frankly, because you don't go into work and in your job, today and start cussing out your employer or, other people that you work with and that's acceptable. And finding a way to work together is just something that is absolutely mandatory. And that
Right.
also gets me thinking about the issues between the Edmonton Police Commission and the city, and how that has unfolded over the past few years, with the province saying like they might need to even step in there. And so, what are your thoughts on that dysfunction?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Like again, this council has got they're real ideological based, and you're just like, you call it to defund the police and jumping on that thing. I'm like, these are the people that keep you safe. Like, um, it's so weird in terms of like how we're pushing everything is fantastic. We don't need the police until there's a problem, and all of a sudden you're like, I need the police happening right now, and I'm just like, well, you told them to beat it, so they're not going to help you now. Like there's not enough of them around. So we need to have that synergetic relationship with the police. The police are not there to, you kind of look at it. The police are not there to bully people around, shove people around. They're not there to, like I've grown up in Edmonton. I've never actually experienced police officers where they kind of walking around where they're asserting dominance over people. They're there to really serve and protect. People get upset with police mostly because they did something wrong. They got a ticket and they got a speeding ticket and they got caught and they get mad. But other than that, the police are there to keep us all safe, and we need to open that relationship with them for sure.
And so, what do you think about the current funding model for the police then?
Well, in terms of like how much they're getting, like
Yeah,
in
like I know that that's been a topic of debate for sure.
well, I have to kind of go and take a look in terms of that funding model and dive more deeply into it. I just know that we just need more police service, and the model that they get in terms of how much they're getting. We definitely need to kind of relook at it and see how we can basically make it synergetic for both the city and the police officers, so that way they have funding to do their job, and it doesn't cost us. It doesn't take all of our taxpayers' money as well. So we kind of have to probably look at that and have those discussions and see what works best and what doesn't. But
Hmm.
defunding is not the way to go.
Yeah, yeah. And in terms of like rebuilding trust between the police commission, the Edmonton Police Service, and City Council, like how do you see that kind of playing out in the next four
Honestly,
years?
we need to, on our side, the way I see it, about we need a fresh start. We've talked about this a lot of times where like the city council has almost never been completely wiped out ever. And this
Hmm.
is the first time where you kind of go around the door and everyone says they got to go. They they all have to go. And it's kind of sad because you kind of look and you do want sometimes some people with experience on council that can help guide some of the newer. Like I would be a new person. I'm not a politician, so I'd be new on there. I would definitely need some guidance in terms of like how things operate.
Hmm.
um but what happens is because you have, especially at the top end, you have NAC, who is like very heavily pushing on the social side, playing, carrying around like as if he has the moral high ground. And then you have Tim Cartmel on the other side, and both these guys are your front runners, but both of them voted for the same problems that we have right now. So you can't, you say, well, what is it? How are you saying we're going to fix the problem when you're the ones that caused the problems? That's not going to work because you have the different lens on you. You're seeing things completely different. So we need an outside perspective. And I think once we remove a lot of the current council, that will open the door to create that relationship with the chief and or the commissioner, the police commissioner, and then we can actually have open dialogue and literally figure out, okay, what is it that you'd like? What is it that you need? How are we going to make this work?
Hmm. Hmm. And so, how would you balance, I guess, the operational independence of the police with the commission and city council?
I think just transparency is going to be the big thing. The more transparent everything is, the more everybody sees it, the more trust is built.
Hmm.
If the police chief has the ability to do his job, and you say, hey, police commissioner, you can run your department how you want to run your department, but we need to be able to see everything, and we have to be able to, you have to be fully transparent. I think that's the best thing right now. There's a lot of things that are kind of intertwined where the transparency is not there. We don't see it.
Hmm.
It's too many ancestral relationships going on where you can't actually see where the flows money is going because it's beneficial on certain things. You kind of do need an outsider to come in and start pulling that apart. And if someone's on the inside, a lot of times they can't pull things apart and see where the
Hmm.
problems is because they're already entwined into it.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and that's what I'm hearing a lot of is that there's a need for transparency and accountability and just like a going back to the basics of City Hall. And so,
Yeah.
as we close out this interview, is there anything that you want to leave with our viewers and with our voters before the election?
Yeah, the big thing is do your research, go out there, meet some people. There's the political landscape is it's tough. Like I said, our organization Paces, we're all grassroots. We're all the first timers in this industry. We're all here. We all put our name in the hat because we want to give our expertise and our knowledge and basically go out there and help the best that
Hmm.
we can do. And so we're not well funded insiders that kind of go out there. We're literally having to knock on the doors, and we work together as a team, and we come across as a lot bigger than we are when we're just like, really, we're 12 efficient beings that are just all in it for the cause, and we're all there and we're all going around helping each other.
Hmm.
And we need the volunteers. Like, we're growing because people are starting to like the grassroots sides. We're more for working for the people as opposed to sometimes these big, huge labor unions or these big corporations. So we really want to make sure that the everyday person, his voice gets heard, and they don't just get pushed to the side and say, your voice only matters when it's election day.
And so, you've stated your municipal affiliation, but do you have any affiliations at the provincial or the federal level at all?
Um, Not really. I went to, if you're looking at the provincial side, I did lean more towards the conservative side because I was very against Trudeau. I didn't like. I was really upset with Trudeau in terms of like how he was running the federal government, and I was really upset about the fact that he lied a lot of times to the people, like openly lied to people, and that really upset me. And that's really kind of where I started to get involved, because once I started, I work in media. I work in this game of smoke and mirrors where people are putting these things up there. And this is why I kind of like these long format conversations, because people can really see, get an idea of what's really going on, as opposed to snippets and bites. Because I've seen
Hmm.
sometimes, you watch sometimes the media and you watch these short format pieces and you're like, whoa, that was very well put together, very well polished. You almost had me believing that if I didn't watch the full length version of it and got the full
Yeah.
message. So I saw a lot of the propaganda that was going on. I see a lot of the propaganda happening around, and where people push their ideology, and it comes out in little bite sizes. And that kind of has to do a lot with the landscape of social media, and where we've kind of gone in that
Hmm.
department, where it's all emotion based as opposed to just having communications and actually talking to people. So for myself, I have a spectrum in terms of my communication and relationships. I have relationships with people who are a little bit more street level, and then I have people that are more professional level. So I do have a spectrum of people that I talk to and how I speak. So that's just an advantage I have of being in communications. I just know, how to listen and how to address and repurpose what it is that people are saying and what message they're trying to get out. But
Hmm.
I saw a lot of the smoke and mirrors, and for that, I was just like, I was definitely not going to be on the liberal NDP side. That's for sure.
Yes, yes. Awesome. Well, thank you, Steve, so much for taking the time to chat with me today and to unpack some of your perspectives. It's been very, very valuable. And to our viewers, thank you as well. It's very important that you stay informed, that you stay engaged, and please get out and vote. Like Steve said, this is a very important election. We're walking into a whole new city council, so have your voice be heard. And thank you so much. And thanks again, Steve. It's been great.
It was awesome. Thank you so much.